session on REDD Plus at Bonn, Outcomes and Next Steps for UNFCCC COP19, organized by World Wildlife Fund's Forest and Climate Initiative. Thanks for taking the time to join us. My name is Breen Burns, and I am a Program Officer for Learning and Communications. Our presenter today is Josefina Braña Varela, Policy Director for the Forest and Climate Initiative. Unfortunately, Josefina can't join us live due to some last-minute travel, but she recorded her presentation with me last week, which I'll play for you today. So before we begin, I'd like to share a few housekeeping tips and reminders. Today's presentation is being recorded, and you can access the recording within a few days on our YouTube channel. To find the recording, simply go to youtube.com and search for WWF Forest and Climate Initiative, or go to panda.org/forestclimate and look for the REDD learning section. There are two audio options. You can listen via your computer speakers or dial in through the number that was provided in your registration email. It is important to note that if you experience audio difficulties while listening via your computer speakers, this can be caused by having multiple software applications open. So please feel free to close some of them, or you are always welcome to join via the phone. Questions are absolutely welcome. Please submit your questions for Josefina through our online REDD learning platform, REDD Community. After the webinar, you'll receive a link to the place on the website where you can post your questions. Thank you again for joining us, and with that, we'll get started.
Hello, everybody. I'm Josefina Braña Varela, Policy Director in the Forest and Climate Initiative from WWF. I'm really sorry I cannot be live with you for this webinar. I had an urgent commitment to attend, but I hope we can make this work. And the topic we are going to talk today in this webinar is REDD+ at Bonn, and the outcomes and expectations for UNFCCC COP19 in Warsaw. So what I'm going to do in this session is I'm going to talk a little bit about the 3 tracks for REDD+ negotiations under the UNFCCC as a way of introducing the topic. And then I'm going to go straight to talk about the outcomes from the 38th session of the subsidiary bodies convention this past June in Bonn. And there was activity in the 3 tracks that are shown in the screen, so I'm going to talk a little bit about all the 3 of them. And later I will show you our REDD+ scorecard that we produced in order to show progress on the main issues on the agenda for that. And I will end with a quick note about our expectations towards COP19 in Warsaw this coming November. So let's start. I'm going to talk also. Okay, there we go. At the convention, I'm not going to go over all the text that you can see in this table in the screen, but this is just to show you that the REDD+ is actually under discussion in these 3 bodies. Under substance, REDD has been under discussion for a while. We have previous work that we haven't finished discussing. We have the technical assessment for reference levels. We have the issue of national forest monitoring systems, MRP, safeguards with respect to the time and frequency of the presentation of the summary of the report, and the need for further guidance on the safeguard information systems. And finally, the drivers of deforestation topic. But there's also new work coming out from DOCA, and it's with regard with how to develop non-market approaches and methodological issues related to non-carbon benefits. So this is the first track on the negotiations. This is the SOXA track, and the co-chairs that are driving the work are from Canada and Indonesia. Formerly, it was Canada and Philippines, but there was a minor change in Bonn, so now the co-chair from Philippines has stepped out, and Indonesia is now doing the work as a co-chair with Canada. So our second track on the negotiations is this joint process that was decided in COP18 in Doha, and is this joint process between FCI and SOFSTAN, and it has to do with improved coordination for the implementation of REDD activities, and also to consider institutional arrangements for potential governance alternatives in the context of the provision of adequate and predictable support. This joint process is guided by two co-chairs, Senegal and Switzerland, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened in Bonn later. And the third track is a work program under the COP on results-based finance for REDD. This work program was created in Doha as well, and it has to deal with three issues. Ways and means to transfer payments for results-based actions, ways to incentivize non-carbon benefits, and ways to improve the coordination of results-based finance. The co-chairs for this work program are Indonesia and Norway, and they should coordinate activities with the work in SOFSTA because it's very related. And as you can see in the three tracks, we have some overlapping issues, particularly with the issue of coordination of support for the implementation of REDD activities, between SOFSTA SBI joint process, and also the work program under the COP, and some supporting methodological work in SOFSTA for the work program under the COP as well. So these are the three tracks in which REDD is being under discussion in the UNFCCC, and I'm going to now tell you what happened in Bonn and what are the main outcomes for the negotiations. So first, I'm going to focus on the work that was made in SOFSTA, and I would like to start saying that all 7 issues in the agenda regarding REDD were actually discussed by parties. There was a lot of time allocated for the working group in these issues, and I believe it's mainly because SBI could not start their sessions, and maybe that contributed to the SOFSTA REDD group to have more allocation of time, and this is it was a very positive situation for us, at least very unfortunate for the people in SBI. But well, okay, so in June in Bonn, parties agreed to recommend at least 3 draft decisions for adoption by COP19. And these 3 draft decisions are 1 related to national forest monitoring systems, 1 related to the time and frequency of the presentation of the summary of information on how safeguards are addressed and respected, and 1 on drivers of deforestation and forest degradation. So this is good news. That means that very likely we're going to have at least 3 decisions on REDD in Warsaw this coming November. And that shows progress, and I believe it's good news. Just to give you a few highlights about these decisions, or these draft decisions, the National Forest Monitoring System calls for transparent, consistent information and data, and that is also that is consistent over time, but also consistent to all provisions adopted for NAMAs. Also decides that the national forest monitoring systems should be built upon existing systems as appropriate, and that it should enable assessment of different types of forests, be flexible, and probably, if appropriate, use a phased approach referred to in Cancun agreements, which allow countries to be developing their national forest monitoring system, but allows for improvement and flexibility. So that is the decision on national forest monitoring systems. With regard to safeguards, the decision is very short, and what it says is that the information on safeguards should be provided by parties through the national communications, or as a voluntary basis through the web platform of the UNFCCC website. And the presentation of the summary of information should be done after the party start the implementation of the REDD activities. and the frequency is every 4 years with the national communications. This decision seems a little bit too general. We would like to see more guidance on how countries are going to be developing their safeguard information systems, but for that, actually, the recommendations of from SoftStamp are to call for submissions, I believe it's September 2014, to both REDD countries that can share the lessons and experiences on how are they dealing with the safeguard information systems, but also call for submissions at the same time in September 2014 to parties and admitted observers with respect to the type of information they are expecting to see coming out in these summary reports from the safeguard information systems in their countries. We expect that there will be probably more reference to the safeguard information systems when we talk about finance, but this is still undecided and we have to wait and see. Finally, a few highlights on drivers of deforestation and degradation. Again, the recommended decision is very short, but it recognizes that drivers are depending on national circumstances, capacities, and capabilities, but encourages also parties, organizations, and the private sector to take action to address drivers of deforestation and also to share the results of their work in doing so. Also, it's important that it makes a link between addressing the drivers of deforestation and the national strategies or action plans from REDD countries, which is a very important recognition, I guess. Okay, so this is in general terms the decisions, the draft decisions that were recommended by adoption, but there are some pending issues that were not finished in Bonn and that need to be discussed in Warsaw. And these pending issues are, well, let's start with the methodological guidance for MRV. So parties discussed around this issue and come up with a list of elements for a possible draft decision to be adopted in Warsaw, but the discussions were not finished. So what I'm going to do here is give you some highlights. I put in red the points that were more controversial or where I see that there's not a clear agreement among parties, and in green you can see the ones that are more, let's say, less controversial. So for MRV, there was agreement on the fact that there should be consistency with previous and future decisions, in particular decisions made at Copenhagen and regarding MRV for NAMAs. There was agreement in general terms with respect to data and information that should be transparent, consistent over time, and it should be also consistent with the established reference levels or reference emission level of given REDD country, and that should be submitted through the biennial update reports. There's also some recognition of the need to create capacities around MRV and the need to support these REDD countries in order to have a better ability to report. So these in general terms are the points that were less controversial, but the parties also had some time discussing what should be the way to do the verification for REDD, those activities, REDD results. One of the options in the table is that the information, the reported information should be subject to the international consultation and analysis, and this is in consistency with previous decisions made in NAMAS discussions. However, at the beginning there was some other discussions about having a more independent international verification. But it seems like parties are coming to an agreement and may be willing to accept ICA as a way to verify the results, as long as it's accepted that there should be a technical analysis. So this technical analysis was widely born, but there were many issues that were unresolved, like, for example, who will carry out the ICA, what would be the process and what would be the context of this technical annex that should be also requested as a part of the, or in addition to the ICA process. So this is the summary of the discussions on MRD. There's a lot of work still to do, but good news is that parties were in very good spirits, and the conflict or the disagreements that we saw in Doha, we didn't see in Bonn. I see a good possibility that we get some decision in Warsaw regarding this issue. So now we have the second pending issue, which is related to the technical assessment of the forest reference emissions levels. And that is a topic that was widely discussed also in Bonn. There's a lot of work still to do, but these are the main highlights. It was common understanding that the reference levels submitted by REDD parties would be subject to a technical assessment, and also there was an agreement that we should invite nomination of technical experts, in particular from REDD countries. There's this invitation to nominate technical experts that will be part of the expert team that will carry out the technical assessment of reference levels. However, there are many issues that are unresolved and that need to be discussed further, and it has to do with the guidelines for the technical assessment of the reference levels. And if you see the elements, the possible elements for a decision in Warsaw, you can see that there are options in the text for addressing the issue of what is the objective of the technical assessment and what is the scope of this technical assessment. What will the team of experts assess, and what kind of information the technical assessment report should produce. And also there was some discussions about the status of the findings and the recommendations. Once the technical assessment is done, what is the status of this report or the findings of this team of experts? So there were some discussions around that issue too. And apart from the guidelines, there was also discussion about the procedures for the technical assessment. And for example, there were discussions about the composition of the assessment team. There was mention that UNFCCC experts should be included in the team of experts. There was some discussions about the timing, the frequency of the assessment sessions, like how many sessions per year are possible, and the timeline of the assessment is like how long the team of experts can take in order to produce the technical assessment, and then how many weeks would the REDD country have to respond or to discuss the findings of the technical assessment, etc. So there was a presentation of a timeline, but it still needs to be decided what will be the timeline overall, how many weeks the process will last, etc. Okay, so we move on to the next slide. So there's another pending issue, and this is related to the non-market-based approaches. It has to do with the joint mitigation and adaptation mechanism first proposed by Bolivia. So this issue is in the SOXA agenda as that needs to be developed, and it needs to be discussed and agreed by parties what we mean by non-market-based approaches and how these non-market-based approaches will support the implementation of REDD Plus activities. So I put here some highlights of the discussions. As I mentioned at the beginning, all 7 issues in the SOXA agenda were discussed. This was certainly one of them. And there was agreement on how to approach this issue in the future, I guess. So there was a common agreement among parties, and this is also really good news because the work seems to be a little bit better organized. So there was recognition of the importance of these approaches to support the implementation of REDD activities. That is in the text that was coming out from Bonn. But there was a recognition that we need to clarify what are the types of the non-market-based approaches that are related to REDD. So in order to shed more light into this topic, SOCSTA is proposing to call for submissions by March 26, 2014 with respect to the views of methodological guidance for non-market-based approaches. And who is invited to submit? Well, all parties and observers, and all the submissions will be compiled in a miscellaneous document that will be available for SOCSTA 40 session. Also, in addition, SOCSTA decided to call for an in-session expert meeting that would be held in SOCSTA 40 to report on the findings of this in-session expert meeting on SOCSTA 41. So this means the agreement among parties is that the work will continue in SOCSTA 40, and the implication of this is that in Warsaw there will be no discussions on this topic. They will agree to discuss this again in June 2014, which would allow parties to focus on the first two pending issues that I just presented. And the third and last pending issue that we have in the agenda is the issue of non-carbon benefits. This topic of non-carbon benefits is in two tracks of the negotiations, as I showed in the table at the beginning. It's here in SOCSTA, but it's also being under consideration on how to incentivize non-carbon benefits in the work program under the COP. So here in SOCSTA, the focus is on methodological issues. So there's the text that came out from Bonn recognizes the importance to take into account non-carbon benefits when implementing REDD activities. But again, as the previous topic, there's also a recognition that we need to clarify what are the types of non-carbon benefits and what are the associated methodological issues. Until we don't define what are we talking about, we cannot start work on methodological issues. So in the same way that for the non-market-based approaches, SOCSTA is calling for submissions again by March 26, 2014 for all parties and observers to submit their views on methodological issues related to non-carbon benefits, and the product will be the same. It will be a miscellaneous document that will be presented in SOCSTA 40. And this topic also was decided not to be discussed in Warsaw, but just to leave these discussions to be restarted in June 2014 when SOCSTA has the fourth session. So these are the topics, the overview and the outcomes for SOCSTA in Bonn. As a recap, we have three decisions that are recommended for adoption by COP19. And we have still 4 pending issues that need to be resolved, 2 in Warsaw that need to be addressed, and 2 for the next session in Bonn 2014. So now I'm going to go to the next track of the negotiations for REDD, and this is the joint process SOCSTA-SBI. So unfortunately, because SBI could not start formal works because there was no agreement in the agenda, the agenda was not adopted, so SBI could not session, and because this is a joint process between the 2 subsidiary bodies, there was no formal sessions on this track of negotiations. There was no contact groups. However, we did have the in-session workshop that was planned on the coordination of support for the implementation of activities that was planned and was considered. So because it was an in-session workshop and not actually a contact group, just the Secretariat was all right for moving forward with it. And just a quick highlights on the in-session workshop. The in-session workshop lasted 3 hours, and we had a presentation from some countries, PNG on behalf of the Coalition for Rainforest Nations, United States, Brazil, and Philippines. And I guess in general terms, we can say that there was broad agreement that we need to improve coordination at all levels with respect to all the financial avenues for REDD activities in order to improve effectiveness. It was a common recognition from parties, REDD countries and also donor countries, saying that, yeah, I mean, there's a lack of coordination and we can be better and we can improve effectiveness. at the different levels, not only talking about UNFCCC, but there's like a wide variety of multilaterals and bilateral deals going on, and coordination would be needed. However, there was there was a polarized view, I guess, with respect to have a centralized structure to facilitate the flow of funds against multiple channels for delivering the finance. I guess the main idea here is whether you will have only the Green Climate Fund as the entity delivering finance already in phase 3, or you can have still multiple channels for doing so when we reach phase 3. And also, obviously, this is related with the proposal from the Coalition for Rainforest Nations to create a REDD Plus committee. This topic was also widely discussed in the workshop, and there was no agreement on the need for creating a REDD Plus committee. Many parties expressed their concern to have too much time dedicated to this issue, but also many other countries said that it is needed and we do have to work in the REDD Plus committee. So there were polarized views and there were no agreements, so it's an issue that still needs to be discussed further where the parties want to take this joint process with respect to this issue. All right, so there's no multi-report in this track because there was no contact group. So we can go now to the outcomes with respect to the COP work program. So the COP work program was agreed in Doha, and then with the work program there was an agreement to have at least 2 in-session workshops. So in this subsidiary bodies session, we have the first in-session workshop, and it was about results-based finance for the full implementation of REDD Plus activities, mainly focused on the ways and means to transfer payments for results-based actions. At least that was the objective and that was the intention. So the workshop was organized by the Secretariat, of course, in coordination with the co-chairs from Norway and Indonesia. And there were presentations from Germany, Ghana, Australia, Indonesia, and Costa Rica. However, the focus of the workshop was not as expected in the ways and means to transfer payments for results-based actions, because there were some guiding questions that kind of distracted a little bit the discussions. And these questions made the discussions to focus on, for example, the unique features of REDD, the enabling conditions that are needed to be in place, and the challenges or barriers to access results-based finance. So the questions, there were 5 questions, sorry, a set of 5 questions, and we didn't get to listen parties discussing anything concrete about modalities and procedures for results-based finance. There was no discussion about the design elements for the financial mechanism, and finally it was a general perception that we didn't actually give any steps forward in this front. Before the workshop and after the workshop, the co-chairs held informal consultations with parties and also with observers, and I guess there's a lot of hunger from everybody, from parties and observers, with parties and Annex 1 parties also, to move forward with this topic in the next workshop, and to probably have a more focalized discussion on the elements that can help us see what are the things we can say about results-based finance forward. So the agreement was that the next in-session workshop cannot take place in Warsaw because it's going to be too late for the COP to actually consider the results of this workshop. So the proposal is to have this workshop on August at some point. There is no confirmation about this, but I know that the intention is to have it in August and to again focus the workshop on the ways and means to transfer payments for results-based action, because the feedback from parties and observers was that this issue was not exhausted and was not addressed fully, and that we need to actually have more discussions in order to advance this topic. So we will wait for confirmation about this this in-session workshop. Hopefully it will be at the end of August, and hopefully it will be open to all parties and observers. And we will have to wait and see what are the questions in the table and how the workshop is going to be handled in order to push parties to come to a concrete outcome in this topic. So yeah, these are the outcomes from the 38th session of the subsidiary bodies in Bonn last June. And what I'm going to do here now is show you the scorecard for REDD. And what I probably need to do, I would like to see, share this. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to tell you the intention of having a scorecard for REDD. What we do every session is we have the main topics on the discussion in the different tracks, and we have here all the topics that I just went through for substance. So we can put the results, like what were our expectations, what are the results, and what is our score. And you can see here that for national forest monitoring systems, our score is green. We have a traffic light system, so green is good. We are happy with the decision. For the topic of MRV, well, yeah, there were steps forward for the discussions. We still haven't finished discussing, and parties need to make decisions, but we are moving forward with the discussions. For the technical assessment process of reference levels, there's no draft decision still, and there's a lot of work to do. So that's why it's in yellow. On drivers of deforestation, we know that the decision is recommended for adoption. We would have like to see a more ambitious decision on the topic. So that's why it's not completely green, even when we know that if there's going to be a decision, we believe that the decision could have been a little bit better. With respect to safeguards, well, we have, again, a proposed decision. However, we are not extremely happy with the frequency that was proposed for submitting information, because it's every 4 years through national communications, and there's no clarity on the need for further guidance. It needs to still be clarified. On non-market-based approaches, well, the score is green and yellow just because the work hasn't even started yet, but we are on the right track. And the same for non-carbon benefits. I believe that good steps and clarity has been added to the process, but still work needs to be taken place. Now, for the joint process SOFSTA SBI, well, we didn't want to put a score just because we didn't have a contact group and actual work, formal work under the convention. There was only in-session workshop. But for the work program, we decided to give a red score to the issues under discussion, because we believe that no progress was made within session workshop and more work needs to be done. Okay. So finally, I'm just going to finish the presentation telling you a little bit about our expectations for REDD Plus in Warsaw. We really expect to see the finalization of the methodological package of REDD Plus design elements. We believe that parties have made a lot of progress, and that they had such a productive time in Bonn that we hope to see them finalizing the decisions on the technical assessment for reference levels and on MRV. So all the design elements for REDD would be finalized, all the technical work would be done, and we can focus now on the track of results-based finance for REDD. So hopefully we want to see parties move forward with the discussions on that topic, and to send a strong signal regarding the provision of adequate and predictable support, not only including financial resources, but also technical and technological support, so REDD countries can actually move forward with the implementation of REDD Plus activities. We believe that parties must show commitment towards REDD+ finance beyond the existing Fast Start funding for the period until 2020, when the new agreement hopefully will be in place, and clearly demonstrate how to meet the financial needs for all phases of REDD. I believe that there is some imbalance right now in the discussions between the technical elements and the technical work that has been moving forward and the topics on the other side, on the results-based finance. There's an uncertainty and there's no clarity about the financial mechanism and what will happen once a country has fully MRV'd emissions reductions. How REDD countries will access finance and how we are going to ensure that there is enough resources and that we can scale up in order to make sure that REDD is a reality. So if we are not able to strike this balance, I believe that there is a lot of risk of not becoming a reality. So finally, there's one issue about REDD, and REDD has been fairly independent in the negotiations, and that's probably why it has moved forward faster than other topics in the negotiations. But we are coming into a point that the integration of REDD within the broader climate architecture is needed, particularly regarding NAMA's provisions for MRV, the long-term finance discussions, the new market-based mechanisms, and obviously the discussions on the Green Climate Fund, because otherwise REDD keeps being like an island, and right now we need to connect REDD with the broader climate architecture to make it more coherent and to actually guarantee that it's going to be sustainable. So we really would like to see REDD laws included in the deliberations of ATP, both pre and post 2020. And with these reflections, I guess I would just want to finalize the webinar. Again, my apologies for not being there live, but we'll be happy to receive any questions from you through our REDD+ platform that we have. It's actually a good excuse for you to go and check it out. I believe it's a good resource and it would be very useful for you. And before handing over to Bryn, I just want to show you this list that I put here of UNFCCC REDD resources for you to consult. All the information I gave to you is based on my participation in the negotiations in Bonn, but also in the documents that were coming out from the 38th session of the subsidiary bodies. So you can access all these documents here in these links. The document L12 has the main results from SOFSTA, but also you have the addendums 1 to 3. There are the 3 recommended decisions that I talked about: the National Forest Monitoring Systems, the safeguards regarding time and frequency, and the drivers of deforestation. These 3 decisions that are recommended for adoption by the COP in Warsaw. And I also included the links to the workshops web page in the UNFCCC. So the workshop of the joint process of the SBI SOFSTA is there, and also the link for the workshop on the work program under the COP. So you can access information and documents from the workshops in those 2 links too. And with that, yeah, I would like to finish and thank you for connecting and participating in this series of webinars. And I look